Cleveland, Tennessee is one of the fastest growing cities in Tennessee. But where did we get our name from, and why did the founder choose it? Well, a man by the name of Benjamin Cleveland, known as the Terror of the Tories, had a history of his own. Our town is named after him.
So could you just give us a little overview of Benjamin Cleveland?
Benjamin Cleveland was he was a kind of a hero in the Revolutionary War, Battle of Kings Mountain, and he was born actually in Virginia. Then he moved. He lived most of his life in North Carolina, kind of on the frontier, and so he was offered a commission in the Continental Army, but he turned that down because he felt like he would rather stay in the militia, the North Carolina militia. And there was a group of guys called the Mountain Men. He started out as a lieutenant. He works up to colonel of these Mountain Men, and so he was one of the commanders of the Battle of Kings Mountain, which was between what was the guy's name? Ferguson, the British commander. I think he was the only British soldier there, and so it was mainly between the Tories, the colonists who were loyal to the British, and the Patriots who wanted their independence. And so Benjamin was with the Patriots, and they were able to defeat the Tories at the Battle of Kings Mountain.
So what can you tell us about the Mountain Boys and their contribution to the Revolution?
Well, I think that the Over the Mountain Men, the thing about them is that they really represent kind of what the United States was about, what it was going to be about. They are outlaws primarily because they've broken the proclamation of 1763 by crossing over the Appalachian Mountains and settling in what was called Watauga at the time. It's northeast Tennessee, around the Holston River. Well, in South Carolina, of course, you have the British Army has invaded in 1780 and under Cornwallis. And one of the things that Cornwallis wanted to accomplish was to try to reestablish law and order in the region, not just in South Carolina. And so once they discovered that there was a whole settlement over the mountains, primarily from complaints from the Cherokee, is where it was coming from. Then Cornwallis put Patrick Ferguson in charge of trying to bring these people back, bring them to justice, etc. Of course, Patrick Ferguson uses a lot of exaggerations and bombastic rhetoric when he goes after them, and tells and sends word to all the people in Watauga that he's going to hang them all. Of course, their response to that is to go over the mountain and go over the mountains and defeat him at the Battle of Kings Mountain. So what their real contribution is that they disrupt Cornwallis's move up through South Carolina and into North Carolina just by drawing resources away from his primary pursuits. The Over the Mountain Men never fought British regulars outright. They were fighting parts of the British Legion, which was a group of Tories that had joined the British Army. They made special regiments for them. They were led by British officers, but they were Americans for the most part.
So that's why they called them the Terror of the Tories, is because they mostly fought, citizens usually.
Yeah, their fellow citizens. And that way, you could argue that it was sort of a civil war of sorts, neighbor fighting neighbor in that way. At the same time, most of the Tories were landed. They would have been elite, while the Over the Mountain Men are definitely not. They're not that. In fact, they're going over the mountain to try to find land that had not been claimed, that it was not being taxed exorbitantly, and so forth. They're part of a whole movement, kind of a part of an attitude that you could have seen in like the Regulator movement and some of those other things at the time. Scots Irishmen, quite a few of them.
So, what was the significance of the Battle of Kings Mountain? What did it do overall to the American Revolution?
Probably the biggest thing at Kings Mountain, the British Army was commanded by Cornwallis, who was in the South at the time, and he had sent Ferguson over. It was kind of his left flank, and so they were trying to gain some more Tory support and wipe out, whatever patriots were over there. And Cornwallis was trying to secure the South so that he could move back up northward. And so when the militia won the Battle of Kings Mountain, it really kind of turns the tide in the South, where Cornwallis has to, instead of him being able to go on and move up north, he has to leave North Carolina, he has to go back into South Carolina because he realizes he doesn't have everything secured. And because of the bad treatment that some of the colonists had gotten from some of the Tories, the win in Kings Mountain kind of revitalized the Patriot cause in the South. And I think it was kind of the turning point, because then the British, they still had to expend a lot of energy there, and Cornwallis could not go ahead with the plans as he had foresaw it. So it was a pretty big deal.
Okay. So, why do you think the founders of Cleveland, Tennessee chose him to be the name of the city?
It's a good question, because I don't know that for sure. I just know Cleveland is named after him. He didn't actually live here, so you would always assume that a town would be named after somebody that was. But to my knowledge, he didn't really spend any significant time here. But I think it must have been just because they were looking for. He was somebody from the general area, western North Carolina, over not too far from here now. And so he was a war hero. He was a big supporter of independence, and a lot of the people that lived in this area, by the time you get to the 1830s, when you're going to have Cleveland really kind of incorporated, you're heading toward the Civil War. A lot of people are not too fond of how the federal government is growing and the things that they're doing. And so maybe, and I'm just guessing, because like I said, I really don't know, but maybe it's because he represented that pioneer spirit of America's going to be different, America's going to be free, and we don't like a lot of big government stuff. But I really don't know. That's a good guess, though. Maybe that's why. But obviously he was a war hero, so a lot of people want to be associated with somebody that was popular in the Patriot cause.
Cool. Well, thank you very much.
After interviewing both of these history teachers, we believe that the founders of Cleveland, Tennessee named our city after Benjamin Cleveland because of his historical significance. Not only did he draw a lot of resources away from Cornwallis's force, but they showed that the Patriot cause was a real one and it deserved to be respected.